Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Joe Ignace. I'm the host of the Knowledge Gap Podcast YouTube channel. We're here with Nick and Tex. Say what's up, guys.
How's it going?
What's up?
Yes, they're going to basically be making out through half this video, just trying to get into that mic.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. But on the podcast, we have a daily release schedule on YouTube, a weekly release schedule on Tuesdays for the podcast. If you're somebody who wants to maximize your college experience, develop leadership, and develop your mindset, and bridging your knowledge gap between what you're learning in school and what you need to know to be successful in your 20s, this is the place to be. I invite you to subscribe. We're going to be literally talking about mindset, productivity, how to maximize your time in college. So when you graduate, you can have the most career opportunities literally possible and do basically what you want to do and have more confidence. So I am an entrepreneur. I do own a couple businesses, a fitness business, and I started the Knowledge Gap a couple months ago. My wife and I do own a nonprofit, which you'll see. Where's the book?
Got it right here.
Here's the book. My wife really started this, but I'm the cool, biggest fan in the world for foster care, helping kids in foster care. And I started this podcast because there's a huge knowledge gap between what you learn in school and what it takes to be success in your 20s. And as it turns out, 41% of people who graduate are underemployed, which means they don't get a great experience from college, which sucks. So if you would like to avoid that and you'd like to maximize your college experience, develop leadership, character, success principles, this is the podcast, this is the YouTube channel for you. That's literally what we're going to talk about. We interview awesome guests who run their own business, are ultra successful out of college, in this case at the University of Tennessee. Let's see your Vols. Go Vols, right? Go Vols. Come on, do the thing. Do the thing, yo, the VOLs. I don't know if he actually went. He might have just been making that up. But yes, I invite you to subscribe. So today we're going to be interviewing you guys. They own Bear Den Books in Sequoia Hills. Is this Sequoia Hills? Bear Den Books, which started, 3 months ago?
July 9th.
Yeah. That's more than 3 months.
Yeah.
July 9th in the summer. So it is literally 2 miles from campus?
Really close to campus.
Yes.
In Sequoia Hills, right next to Plaid Apron and Treetop Coffee.
Oh, Treetop. Dude, I know college students are Treetop Coffee.
100%.
So comment below if you like Treetop Coffee. So
can I tell you honestly what college students do when they come here?
Tell me.
They go to Treetop Coffee, they buy a coffee, and then they walk in here, spend about 20 minutes browsing books, and then don't buy anything.
Nice.
It's wonderful.
Yeah,
we love college students.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, we love talking to them and then having them not spend money and leave. So that's our favorite thing.
Well, the reason I want to interview you guys is that I'm a real advocate of reading because I actually believe that if you are in college, you're trying to figure out what you want to do in your life. And there's a lot of people who do really cool things. And if you read a book about them, you might be inspired to know what you want to do with your life. And I think that's one of the most common questions that college students have is what the heck do I want to do 10, 15, 20 years from now? And they don't read. And I know what you guys are all about is reading and sharing knowledge, right? And that's why you started this. And we want to hear a little bit about that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is why reading's valuable, why it's so important, and why you should get a physical copy. That is a huge thing because there are literally statistics. If you read PDFs, ebooks, you just don't retain it as much. And then I'm a big advocate of spending the money on a book because if you buy the book, you'll read it. And if you read it, you'll benefit from it. I have a couple stories to share on that. So, but just start out, guys, just tell us where you're from. Give us your origin story. You guys lived in Texas, I think, right? So give us a little bit of that.
Yeah, so Tex and I are both from Knoxville originally. We have been friends since middle school. And
how'd you meet? That's a huge question.
In middle school?
Yeah,
I honestly don't remember our first interaction, but I can almost guarantee that Tex was wearing a Karl Malone Lakers jersey when it happened. So we became really good friends really quickly. We had a great close group of friends and stayed tight all the way through high school, college, went to UT. Both of us went to UT. When I graduated, my degree was in journalism. I moved to Texas and worked for a newspaper for 4 months. Realized I hated that job and the field that I had spent 4 years getting a degree in. So I moved to Austin. I got a job in advertising, which is actually what my full-time job still is. Tex works here full-time and I still have that job. But Tex moved, I guess you can pick up your part of the story, but basically Tex was in Texas. He moved separately a few years later. And then I moved back in 2020. I had 2 kids and a great wife. And
what happened to your kids?
I still have them.
Oh, you said I had 2 kids.
Well, she had them.
I'm just kidding.
We currently have them. So I have two children,
You're doing great.
Knox and Davy. They're 3 and 4. And my wife and I decided to move back to Knoxville to be closer to family. We love the area. She started a business called Fit for Mom West Knoxville. That's a mom stroller workout type business that creates community and stuff. So
that's awesome.
Back. Yeah, it's really cool.
My wife would literally love it.
Oh, yeah. We meet people around town all the time, and she tells them what they do, and they're like, "Oh, you're in the stroller gang at Lakeshore Park," and she's like, "Yeah, that's me." People, it's pretty wild. It's like 40 moms just running around Lakeshore Park with strollers. But we moved back. We were really impressed with the growth in Knoxville. The small business climate in Knoxville was really cool, and so I had started to think about things that Knoxville needed, and seeing the success she had with her small business. She and I had always dreamed about owning a bookstore, starting a bookstore, and Tex and his wife Morgan were in town around this time last year. Actually, things escalated very quickly. So they were here last November for a week or so, and I went back and forth about whether or not to tell Tex about this, because I didn't want them to feel pressure or anything to move, but I wanted him to know, like, I was thinking about starting this, and I knew he was the absolute perfect person to start this with, because he's super personable, hilarious, runs all like the social side of things, has branding experience. So we went to Cracker Barrel where all big conversations happen.
Yeah.
And
big time business place.
Yeah. Breakups happen at Starbucks, business partnerships start at Cracker Barrel.
That's right.
Put a plaque there someday, I think.
So I basically just told him, I was like, "Hey, I have this concept for a bookstore. I'm gonna do it. You're really the only person though who I know who would be like perfect for this." So I just didn't tell anybody. He was like, "You know what? I'm gonna sit on this for a month or so, like before I talk to Morgan about it. Then I'll let you know." 3 hours go by. He's already told Morgan, and she's FaceTiming me, and she's like, "Are you trying to get us to move here?" So I was like, "No, I swear it's legit." I like show her I emailed them the business plan, and I was like, "I really do have this idea together." Anyway, so he called me. They took a couple months to think about it. He called me this past January and was like, "Hey, I think I'm in." And from there, they moved here May 1st. Like, we found the building, and it's been really, really great ever since. Like, we've been super pumped about the response from the community, from the neighborhood, and people outside of the neighborhood. Like, we have regulars who don't live in Sequoia, who live in all parts of Knoxville. So that's been really fun, and seeing like all the local authors who have shown up. We've had like Jack Neely, who we love, like Knoxville History Project and all the stuff Jack has written over the years, has come and done a talk. Bill Bass, who's like a legend at UT for the Body Farm. There's been children's authors who have come, Katie Kate and Angie Eason. We've just really enjoyed seeing that take off so quick. I mean, we were just two dudes who started a bookstore. We didn't really know. But yeah, so last thing I'll say is we like to say that our bookstore is the least pretentious bookstore in America. So that's kind of our vision for it. Like you alluded to, we think reading's really important, but when you walk into a bookstore, there tends to be kind of a vibe in a lot of bookstores where you feel kind of self-conscious about what you're going to take to the counter, or a little afraid to ask for advice on what to read next. You do not feel that way when you walk into Bear Den Books. We make sure of it. Like, we're here to hang out. We'll give you a recommendation if you want it, but if you just want to read trashy romance novels, like, we're going to laugh with you about it, and you're not going to feel judged at all. And if you want a recommendation on...
We'll even wrap it for you if you want.
Yeah, we'll wrap it for you.
Knows.
We encourage all types of reading. So anyway, that's the vibe we try to create here is very laid back. And honestly, I think that's why I joke about college kids not buying anything here, but we get a lot of them because it's just a really fun, laid back place to hang out. And I think that people we hear that actually a lot from customers. Like, it's fun to walk into a bookstore and feel like it's more laid back. So we're the least pretentious bookstore in America.
Love it. Oh, so you heard a second ago here that they say they would wrap a book for you. So where's that Lily storybook? It's my wife's book, and we're gonna hear it live here for the first time ever. The Tex, Nick mix rap, Lily's story. Let's go. Let's hear it.
That's not what we meant when we said we wrap books, but.
That's totally what they meant.
They're
not talking about like plastic.
This is a heavy book to rap about, let me just say, because it starts off sad.
All right, 3, 2,
Maybe
1.
It should be more
Let's
like
go.
Beat poetry.
Lily lived in a home with lots of...
No, we're not doing that. That's gonna be sad.
It's like starting off with like how she.
Let me see that real quick. Let me see that. There's got to be one page on there that we can do.
I don't know, man.
It's a pretty sad book.
We're gonna pass on the rest.
Oh yeah, this is. Oh yeah. Oh. Ooh.
Have you read your wife's book?
I've read my wife's book.
The more fun.
Hey, listen, it's an emotional. It's an emotional therapy book. It's to help children understand other children and quit being such bullies. Okay. She wrote it for a lot of good reasons. I don't know. This is the bully part is made up by me. Okay, Tex, tell us about you.
So, like Nick said, I grew up in Knoxville. Went to Farragut High School. We met middle school. I was wearing a Karl Malone jersey, and he did play for the Lakers for 1 year. And
what do you think of LeBron?
I don't really have any thoughts about LeBron. He's fine. fine. I don't generally pull for it. I'm not a LeBron guy, but yeah, I grew up in Knoxville. I went to Lipscomb University for 1 year and did not enjoy it. It just wasn't for me. I wanted a big college. I wanted to be in a classroom with like 500 people. And so at Lipscomb, I was in a classroom with like 20 people. And so I transferred to UT, got to hang out with my friends from high school. Like Nick was a friend from high school. We had some other friends from high school, but we really became good friends in college. I feel like we would go up to the Smokies like every fall break. You know, we'd go on trips, and we went up to New York City on New Year's Eve to go watch the ball drop and had no plan really of like how to make this happen. We just went up there, and that's kind of what we've done with this. We've had more of a plan with the store, but
So how did you guys start the store? So you guys have had this great relationship, Cracker Barrel, getting really, really excited over some eggs.
Yeah.
I mean, like, why a bookstore? And then where'd you talk us through it?
Well, first of all, we love books and we love to read, and we've gotten lost in books. We've talked for hours about like our favorite books. We talked about Harry Potter for a long time. My personal favorite book, Lonesome Dove, the greatest book ever written. We've talked about that, and we, really did kind of bond over things like this. And when we became good friends in college, and it was like Nick was saying, here in Knoxville, what we want to do is make our city better. And when we like look around town, like there's not an independent bookstore in West Knoxville. There's a great one downtown called Union Avenue Books, but if you want to make your city better, you can't just wait for somebody else to do something. Like, you need to do it yourself. Like, if you can do that, do it. And so Nick had the idea for that, and he asked me to go to Cracker Barrel, and I was like, absolutely. Like, I want to make Knoxville a better place. I wanted to move back home, and being here in Sequoia Hills, it's just been incredible.
I'll add just a little bit onto that personally. So my personality is like, I'm a little bit of a contrarian. I love to challenge, and I love to be challenged, which we were talking off mic a little bit about some of those similarities. But for me, I love when people ask, like, it's so brave. Why would you start a bookstore with Amazon? I love that people feel like it's such a difficult thing to do. The truth is it's not. That's kind of like a false narrative that's out there. Like, people read books. But the thing that you don't get on the internet, there's a lot of things you don't get on the internet, but I joke that buying a book online versus buying a book in the store is like Wii bowling versus bowling. Yeah, can you simulate the experience pretty well? Like, you went bowling, I guess. Like, you saw pins fall down and your arm made the motion, but you didn't pick up a book. And really a big part of reading is talking to other people about it. Like, walking in, hey, how'd you like it? What resonated with you? What's it going to change in your life? Did it change the way you think about something? And honestly, we have a bumper sticker that says a book is the opposite of a tweet, because no one's listening, no one's considering new ideas, or it's getting more rare for that to be happening. And having 2 little kids, like, this is something, part of it was doing it for them. Like, I want more good places in the world, and this is a good place. Like, you're not going to get rich starting a bookstore, but this is a good place. This is a place where people come in, they feel loved, they feel safe, and you're able to consider new ideas and escape the algorithm that Amazon's going to keep you in, or that social media is going to keep you in. It's been really fun to see that pay off quickly. And I know that my kids, like, they may work here one day, they may whatever, but they love coming in here, having an amazing bookstore to pick out their next book and go home and be excited to read it together as a family. Like, reading Charlotte's Web to my son right now at nighttime, and he loves it. It's like that, making that type of routine, and I don't think that's happening very many places anymore. But yeah, for me, a big part of it, if I'm being honest, is the kind of contrarian thing where it's like, I actually think Knoxville can support 40 breweries. We should be able to support a couple bookstores. Yeah, especially West Knoxville, hopefully that adds a little bit of color. But, and then there's obviously the personal fulfillment part of it, where it's like getting to do this with a close friend who's super talented is just the cherry on top. And then the process of actually, you asked about moving into the store, like how we got it started. We really came in here, like, we found the space. I mean, it was like 2 weeks. We had 2 weeks to find the space, basically, because we had another space lined up that fell through. Tex was moving here May 1st, no matter what. And so we were on the clock. We found the space, and literally it was like, we walked in day one and we were like, all right, where are we going to get shelves? Let's go get shelves. Where are we going to? And we kind of had a joke. We just kind of one foot in front of the other. We didn't know, I think it's relevant for your audience probably, because all we knew was what we were passionate about. We didn't have like a 12-step plan. I mean, we had done some research. We had a business plan, but we didn't know like, here's the 14 steps and then you have a finished open furnished bookstore. So it was actually, I think that's been the best part so far, was pre-opening, getting to make all those decisions together and like think about, basically problem solve. We have some stories I could tell that where we got up a creek and had to figure our way out of it, but that's kind of the story of our whole friendship, I feel like. That was a really, really cool experience. And our inside joke since we started it is every time we like feel like we're in a rut or something, one of us would be like, forward, in the pirate voice. And we're like, and the other one's always like,
nice.
Oh, you can do it.
Aye, forward.
Always forward.
Always forward.
We're just like, you just figure it out. I mean, whatever. We know what we want to do. We'll get there. Like, just keep moving in the right direction. So, yeah, when we walked in, it was just an empty building. And actually, there was a conference table and chairs over there that we had to get rid of on our own. And we were like, all right, we're going to turn this into a bookstore. And it just happened kind of one thing at a time.
I mean, like, one of the things that we learned is with Forward, just like busting down the door. Like, we had problems finding a building for a little bit. Nick found out who our landlord was and searched him. This is a guy that, like, I don't think he wanted to be found. Like, you'd think he might want to because he's a landlord, but Nick searched everything he could. Nick doesn't even have social media, and he was able to find this man. And he was like going to like now our neighbors over at Treetop and like, who's the landlord? And literally just busted down the door and like pretty much forced a meeting at a Starbucks and just like made it happen. And we went down to Atlanta to get IKEA shelves. We weren't prepared. We didn't have a trailer to pick up the mountain of shelves that we got. As you can see behind us, there's a lot of shelves, but we just made it happen. We went and got a U-Haul trailer and added like 5 hours to our day in Atlanta. We were not planning on being there all day, but I mean, that's just been how we've operated. Is just like, we're not going to let things get in the way of us starting this thing and doing everything we can to be successful, and we're not going to be afraid to make mistakes or get out into the deep end, and like, we're just not afraid to do that. And so I think that us together, I think we've worked well in that space, and I think it's been a good partnership of like, we're not afraid to do this. Like, a lot of people be like, why a bookstore? Like Nick said, like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to go to a store where you're going to know the person at the front and they're going to know your name, they're going to know your kids' names, and you're going to feel like you're in a small town here at Bared In Books because we know who the people are that are walking in the door. But we make an effort to know that. If you're coming in twice, like, I'm hoping that we know your name.
Right.
So that's like, I mean, that's what's missing, I think, in
The world.
The world in America, I guess. You know, it's like people, you know, you go into a store and it's just like bright white lights. You don't know the people's names that are working there, or they don't know your family. So that's what we want to do here, and I feel like that's what we've done.
So I want to ask you guys some follow up on these key points and make sure the audience gets a lot of this, because you know what I think is really interesting. You guys mentioned a lot is like this idea of killer instinct that, if I haven't talked about it on the podcast, just I talk about it a lot with people I've led before at Southwestern when I was selling books and being a leader there. And I think you talked about fear, which is the primary motivator for most people, is fear. And fear can be a healthy thing when you're trying to survive, but an unhealthy thing when it's a social fear, or you're getting into this groupthink idea where everyone says something's impossible, but it's not even true, right? Yeah. So it's just like almost, I wouldn't even say it's nonsense. It's just a learned conditioned behavior to think negatively about something. And if you kind of pack that up, why do people think that a bookstore wouldn't work? Well, it's because they think everyone else, and therefore, oh, I'm right? And then you go do it, right? And I would hear that all the time. It's like, why are you going door to door selling stuff? It's like, that's crazy. That literally just happened right here, didn't it? She's like, oh, I used to hate you guys. And I'm just sitting here laughing. I was like, I heard that so much. And then you go out there and you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers. And it's like, what's possible to the masses, what's seemingly impossible to them is possible to you. It doesn't actually matter. If you're willing to have that mindset of like, just make it happen, whatever it is, I'll make it happen, because you guys have a purpose, right? You know, and that's a lot of leadership. The reason a lot of people don't have influence, which is really what leadership is influence, doesn't mean you have to have a team of 10 people sitting around, you know, you telling them what to do. It's like, you guys have influence in the community, right? So people need to take that step, right? You guys saw a need, you went for it. I think that's a really healthy thing. So I think if you're listening and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, it's just like, what's the need? What are you passionate about? What are you excited about helping people with? And then doesn't matter about the money will come. You know, if you're adding value, the money's going to come, right? And if you just keep pushing, it will eventually work out. So I love that. So what was the scariest part about getting started, or what did you have to overcome the most? Was there a moment where you're like, we can't do it?
I can start this. I upended my entire life to move back to Knoxville. Convinced my wife to move to Knoxville, and we didn't have a building yet. That was the scariest thing for me, of like, we had these conversations of like, we're going down the road with one building, it didn't work out. And Nick was aware of this, but I was reminding him too. I was like, I am not moving in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. It's like the countdown is like, we're out of the house. Like, we've got the pods, they're on the way. That was the scariest thing for me, was just like taking that plunge of like getting in my car and moving back here and taking my dog and my wife, and we're going. And 3 weeks out, we didn't have a building, and so that was that's an easy one for me. Is that's
all in, right? So that the lesson there is just like, if you're gonna be going all in, because there's no way out and you can't quit, it will work out or you die. Well, you're not gonna let yourself die, obviously, or go hungry, right? So you're gonna figure it out. So I love that, right? A lot of people they put their toe in, right? Should I do it? It's like no, go all in, cut off the other options, right? And you'll figure it out. I love that.
Yeah, similar answer. The scariest part for me was not the business risk. It was knowing that Tex and Morgan and their dog Howie were moving here for this. I couldn't take it lightly. That there was a lot of responsibility to make sure that I honored that by being a good partner and taking it seriously. And so they were looking for a place to live. We had a vacant house right next to us, and the landlord, or the guy who owns it, lives across the street from us, is our neighbor. And Tex and Morgan ended up renting for the first 6 months they lived here, so 5 or 6 months, rented next door to us too. So there's a commitment level. And I think that was really good, because for me, like, I couldn't, I have a full-time job, so I'm only here like after hours or on the weekends, and I was always aware, like, I live next door, so we're like seeing each other on our morning walk every day. And so that was honestly the scariest part, is I had to stare down the barrel every morning of, did I get one of my best friends in the world to move across the country for a business that's going to fail? And that's a scary thing, but I would say I'm more afraid of falling asleep at the wheel of my life and not trying those things. But it's tough. Like, there's no such thing as a comfortable life that's also fulfilling, in my opinion. So
I love that.
But him knowing that like this was going to be his livelihood. I mean, his wife has a great job too, but knowing that like this was going to be his job, like this wasn't something to play around with. It was a good thing for me. Like, he was talking about chasing down the landlord and taking it really seriously. Like, it definitely lit a fire under my butt, and it's honestly made us really successful, because that's a serious thing. He took the leap of faith. That wasn't me. I was here anyway.
Well, I think one of the overarching themes that can be really applicable to somebody who's maybe want to start a business, want to, be a leader, want to do something cool, is they often struggle getting started. They struggle with the leap of faith. And oftentimes people are trying to do it by themselves. One thing that I just saw shine through with you guys, you did it together. There was no way you were going to allow the other person to drown, right? So I think something you could take away from that is, if you have an idea like this, do it with somebody. You'll get there much quicker, much faster. 2 minds are better than one, or whatever. What's that phrase? Two is better than one? Two heads are better than one?
I think that's it.
That sounds good. But yeah, like, do it with somebody. Find somebody with similar interests, partner with them, work together. You'll get there so much quicker. I like that a lot. So, value of reading. Why is it valuable to read? You don't have to do this in any order. Why is it valuable to read? What is your favorite book of all time? What was the biggest life lesson that you learned that you apply that, quote unquote, changed your life?
Wow.
No pressure.
Yeah. All right. That's a lot. So, you want to tackle these together one at a time? Yeah. So value of reading, I think that's probably the easiest one. Like, it's good for your brain. It's going to help you be smarter.
And as a college student too. You're talking like, why is it valuable to read as a college
student,
or high school student?
Because if you come into Bear Den Books, talk to Tex, and go home with whatever y'all settle on, and you spend 1 hour before bed reading that at night, it will change your life if you replace Netflix with that and you make it a habit. Like, that's a guarantee, that's a promise. I'll pay for every book if it doesn't. 2 is, it's going to make you smarter. Every book you read, you carry with you for the rest of your life. So people who are readers, especially at a young age, by the time you're in your mid-20s, the time you're talking about, you've kind of got this network of, like, even if it's not super hardcore nonfiction books that are specialized in a certain area, you just have this general well-rounded knowledge about the world, how it works. You can understand other people's perspectives because you've literally spent, hours listening to somebody else's opinion, even if you don't agree with it, or hearing, if it's fiction, like a story someone else wrote. So, we could talk about why reading is good, but I would just make it simple. I like the challenge. I like the concrete thing. Like, you start small. If you just replace 10 to 15 minutes of TV time right before bed, well, you're going to sleep better also. it's much better for your brain and it's going to help you sleep better. But you're going to feel better and it's going to start to change your life, especially if you're reading stuff that's right for you, which is different for everybody. And that's what a bookstore like this is for, is to help you find that. And so if you come here, I guess I'm kind of saying follow me and see type of attitude. But, you can Google benefits of reading and see whatever Reddit with 100 reasons probably.
It sounds like a discount might be in order here.
Trust me, you're getting the discount because it's the best investment you can make in yourself. So I don't know if you have anything to add to the.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I'm a story guy. Like, I love stories, and if a good story like sticks with you. Whether it's fiction or nonfiction. Like, I read the book Angels and Demons by Dan Brown when I was in Europe with my grandfather.
Solid.
Yeah, great book. But I read it when I was in Europe with my granddad, and so now, like, when I think of that book, it still sticks in my mind. I can think of my granddad. He passed away last year. I have, the memory of reading this book with him in Europe. So things like that, they'll stick with you. You can look back on when I was reading this book, I was in my mid-20s. When I graduated from college and I was in my like early to mid-20s, like, I got really into reading and I was like consuming anything I could, like Ernest Hemingway. I was going into all the books that they made you read in high school or college, and they make you read those books because they're like the best books that were ever written. And so it like opens up your world. You can find out, like, do you want to know what somebody was thinking about in the 1920s, like during they call it the lost generation? Go read Hemingway. You're going to find that out. You're going to get into his mind. You're going to like learn things that you didn't know before. You're going to go into different time periods. If you want to learn about Frederick Douglass, you can read his thoughts, his entire autobiography. So you're not going to get that if you just Wikipedia it. If you watch a movie, you'll get the story, but if you read all 7 Harry Potter novels, you're going to know way more about each character, their motivations, everything, than if you just watch the movies.
I was going to add 2 things. Number 1 is it is a real thing that reading an hour of fiction before bedtime is more effective for helping you go to sleep than taking melatonin. So that's a real thing people can Google, is irrefutable. The second benefit of reading that I didn't say in my first batch of things that the benefits of reading, the way we have conversations in the world now is we take sound bites from whether it's media or, you read something somewhere, you see a YouTube clip, you watch a game and it's ESPN, and we just parrot them back to each other. Like, there's so few original thoughts. The example I was giving was, like, Tennessee beats Alabama for the next week. You may have 40 conversations about that game, but you're just basically repeating the same 3 talking points back and forth to each other, right? It's like, oh yeah, they took the goalposts to the river. That was awesome. Oh yeah, Alabama fans think the game was rigged. It's like, that's it. There's no like original thought. There's no hot takes, or no legitimate like deep thinking happening there. When you read books, you develop a worldview where you start to think about things that you wouldn't have before, and you're more comfortable having original thoughts. And also it exposes you to all the things you don't know outside of your bubble, and you don't know what you don't know until you read a book, and books help you know what you didn't know.
Knowledge gap, there it is. That's it. Not scripted, I promise. That was awesome. Yes, the knowledge gap. Yes, literally, you don't know what you don't know, and if you read stuff, you will be inspired. There's a really good book called Love Does by Bob Goff that has inspired me literally since I was like 17 years old. I would read that kind of book. He just talks about his story, right? His story, and he was like this really cool lawyer, became an ambassador for an African country, and then the reason he became a lawyer was so he could help people, and he actually helped like free kids from slavery or like prison in this African nation. It was crazy, right? And it's like, wow. Most people, when you think of a lawyer, they think of like scumbag or something, right? Or they say, right? There's always that like stereotypical thing, but it's like, oh, you could use that for this purpose, right? Which is why the bookstore makes sense. Everyone's like, why would you do a bookstore? It's like, well, you have a purpose, your community, right? There's a reason behind it. You don't want to get parroting things, because then you're not going to ever do your bookstore. You're not ever going to do that thing that makes sense to you, because then you're worried about the socialization aspect of like being accepted, right? And if you want to do anything successful, you've got to literally be okay with not being accepted. You have to totally be okay. A certain percentage of people in the world are always going to tell you guys, dude, everything's online, bro. Like, this is terrible. This is dumb, right? There's a certain percentage of people, right? No matter what you believe, if you're a Christian, whatever, like, you're going to have a certain percentage of people who don't like what you're doing, but that's not why you do it. You do it for the people who are going to love it. That's who you do it for. You do it for people who are going to love it. So I love those ideas. Okay, so biggest lesson you've learned from a book. What is that book? What's the lesson that you actually apply? Get in there.
My favorite book, this is irrefutable. You can Google it. It is the best book ever written.
Oh, can you say that with your chest?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Best book ever written. It's a novel called Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, and
sounds soft.
It does sound soft. You'd think so, but it's incredible. It starts out. Let me just paint the picture for you. The border of Texas and Mexico. There's a small town called Lonesome Dove. Two former Texas Rangers. One of them's name is Captain Woodrow Call, and then Captain Augustus McCrae, who is from Knoxville, Tennessee. And these two gentlemen are retired Texas Rangers, and they are convinced to start a cattle drive up to Montana. It's a very large book, and it's a wonderful book. And what I learned,
they're right behind you.
They're right behind. We got stacks of them, people. If you want to come out, if you want me to talk to you about Lonesome Dove, I'll talk to you about Lonesome Dove. But for me, it is a story of friendship, of Captain Call and Captain McCrae, like never leaving each other behind. It's based on a historical event, which I won't spoil because it'll spoil the book. But it's about friends who stick together. And so I think that's the lesson for me, is like whatever happens, and that's been a lesson for this store, for Nick and myself, or for my marriage with my wife Morgan. It's like you stick together and you go back for the other person. You don't leave your friend in the lurch. When things are tough, you got that goal, like we've been talking about. You got that goal ahead. Like you just, like, it might be raining, it might be mud, you might have had a horse go down with a broke leg. You keep going, and you see the goal and you're going for it. And like tough things are gonna happen, hard things, just life, and yeah, you stick with it. So Lonesome Dove, best book ever written.
There's a lot to choose from, obviously, but my favorite, I think the one that's the easiest one for me, the clearest one, is it's called A Severe Mercy, and it's a true story of a couple who fall in love in the mid-1900s. This is right before World War II, and the wife in the couple, they eventually get married. Her name is Davy. That's who my daughter is named after. And basically it's their love story. And what ends up happening, they're incredibly adventurous. They live on a sailboat for a while. Like, he has to go fight in the war for a little bit, and they're both avid readers, and they like share anyway, they take their relationship, like it's an amazing book to read, the way they think about their relationship and the things, how adventurous they are. It's very inspiring. And then she passes away when she's 30 or around 30, and they've only been married for 6 or 7 years, and he's built his whole world around her, and they have to deal with this sickness coming in and knowing she's going to go. And it will make you weep, but it's an amazing viewpoint. And he's corresponding, Van Auken's his last name. He's corresponding with C.S. Lewis throughout this whole thing, because he's read a C.S. Lewis book, and they met him at Oxford, where they were for like 2 years. They have a crazy life story, and they're exchanging these letters about going through this hard time. And it definitely, that was a life changer for me. I read it when we were pregnant with my son, our first kiddo, and I think about that book. The greatest books I've ever read, I think about on a regular basis. And that book I think about at least once a week. And you talk about a reason to buy a regular book, like an actual physical copy of a book. Number one, I reread that book a lot. Number two, it sits in my living room and I see that book, on the reg, and the lessons I learned from reading it it's like washes over me fresh again. So I would say A Severe Mercy. It's not a long book, but it's emotionally heavy, but it will change you.
Absolutely love it, guys. My favorite book of all time, again, Love Does, Bob Goff. Check it out. Biggest life lesson I learned from that. At one point, he finished undergrad. He had terrible LSAT scores, absolutely terrible. Got denied by everybody. In fact, they returned his admissions check every time that he would get his rejection letter, because they felt so bad taking his money for going in to try to apply, because it was just so low. There was just no way. And so he finds a college that he wants to go to, and what he does is he goes to the dean's office, introduced himself, said, "Hey, my name's Bob. I'd like to go to your law school. What do I need to do? Just tell me and I'll go buy my books." And the dean laughed at him and said, "No way. Thank you for coming," basically in a very nice way, walks him out the door. And what Bob decides to do is he's not going to give up. He's not going to quit. And he sits down at the dean's office on this little bench in front of the secretary, and he sits there the entire day. And the dean walks out. He's like, "Oh, you're still here?" He's like, "Just tell me to go buy my books." And that's the name of that chapter. And he does it for 13 days in a row. He does it so much. He has the bathroom breaks mapped out of the dean. His eating breaks, his habits, his phone calls, his schedule. And on the 13th day, right? I mean, imagine doing that for 13 days. That's all you do. You get there at 7. You don't go home till 6. You're sitting there on the bench just waiting for the dean to come tell you go buy your books. He was not willing to quit, right? And he comes out and eventually says, "Go buy your books." And it's like 2 weeks late. So he's 2 weeks behind in his classes too, right? So the point being, the lesson being is like, if you ask for what you want, sometimes you got to kick a door door down. Sometimes you have to go through some stuff to make it, to prove yourself, you know, and I've always taken that with me the rest of my life. But that's such a good book, you know, to just really focus on like that mentality, is to like make it happen, don't give up. And I think the biggest thing is what most people struggle with, some of the excuses people have is like, well, think about what if he quit on day 12? What if he quit 20 minutes before he was successful on day 13, right? So a lot of people quit, right? And I think a lot of things that might go through your mind as a college student, the excuses of reading that I've heard 1,000 times, why don't you read? It's because I read too much. First off, you're not reading your textbooks. I know you're not. So you're just making that up, probably, most of you guys. Some of you, if you are reading a lot, it's like, well, you've also got to feed your mind in different ways, right? If you're just educating, you know, all this nonfiction stuff, you're not actually going to learn much. So you need to be spending time in fiction. You need to be spending time with like motivational books. You need to be spending time developing your leadership, different aspects of yourself. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself so ultra specialized that you can't communicate anymore. You know, or your relationships, right? So these are really important things to check out. So
also, if you're not enjoying reading, that's why a store like this is here. So you're not on your own on Amazon, but you can come in and talk to this guy, and you will enjoy reading, because you're reading the wrong stuff if you don't like it.
Boom. All right, so do you guys want to plug anything?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to plug this bookstore we're sitting in.
You're going to plug I didn't expect that.
So Bear Den
Did you
Books.
expect that? I was not sure that that's what you're going to do.
Bear Den Books, very close to campus. We've got a wonderful coffee shop. Treetop Coffee is right next door. The two ladies who own that have become good friends of ours. They're awesome. Plaid aprons next to that. Amazing, especially brunch, but amazing food over there. So come by beardenbooks.com, spelled the same as beardenbooks.com if you're from Knoxville, so you get that. And then I would say definitely follow us on Instagram, because Tex puts up some amazing content. He has lots of alter egos who come out on Instagram. That has been the thing we probably have heard the most about over the last month or so, is Tex has begun unveiling these characters on Instagram. So definitely do that. But yeah, close to campus. If, you know, we want to talk to you and we want to help you find the right book and just hang out with you.
What's the Instagram handle?
It's at bear_den books.
Well, thanks you guys so much for being on the podcast. And as always, you're welcome. As always, you know, follow us on socials if you're not. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Most importantly, the YouTube channel. You guys subscribe on there. If you listen to this and you found a lot of stuff helpful, I would encourage you to watch or listen to episode 21, which is about materialism and how to basically sustainably motivate yourself, because I think these guys have got that part figured out, where it's all about the community, the purpose. And there's going to be another episode that's all about asking for what you want, or why should you ask for what you want, which I think these guys, you know, did, and had a great story about basically making this thing happen. Check out my fitness company on Instagram at the Elevate Wellness. If you're interested in nutrition, training, becoming more fit, bettering yourself in that way, just hit that link. You know, you guys can get a free consultation there. And if you haven't followed the podcast, what are you doing? Follow the podcast right now.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, you can add one more thing.
One more thing is, if anybody wants to talk to me or Tex about anything, or something resonates with you and you want to have coffee, or you want to stop by, or you just want to reach out via email, my email is nick@beardenbooks.com, and I will 100% respond if you reach out. It may take me a couple days, but I will get back to you. So if anything resonated with you and you want to chill, that's what we're here for.
Awesome. Well, we hope this was somewhat entertaining, educational, informative, and added some value to your life. And if you enjoyed that, just keep on coming back for more. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.